Hey, Matt, I've been thinking, that's one of those phrases that always makes a husband stop in his tracks. Kind of like when you hear, "Sweetheart, we need to talk," and you instantly know something's wrong, or it's news you're not going to like. Or the dreaded, "Do you think this dress looks good on me?" A question that never has a simple answer. Let's be honest, guys, there's no escape from that one. Either you tell her she's drop-dead gorgeous, or you try being truthful and brace yourself for the fallout. Then there are those phrases like, "I did it for you," which is her way of saying she's aware it's a lot to ask, but she's trying to soften the blow by pointing out something nice she did. My personal favorite? "It's worth your attention." It usually comes with a bit of charm or a playful tone to grab your focus. Most of these lines are manageable, but when she starts with, "Matt, I've been thinking," you might try to dodge with a quick comeback like, "Congrats, dear. But I wasn't in the mood to risk the couch tonight, so I stayed quiet." This time, though, I had to stop her because what she was about to suggest nearly wiped out any desire I had left to be close to her. Yeah, I guess I'll take the couch after all. Our lives have shifted so much, kids are grown, we're financially set, no real worries, but we're still caught in the same boring loop we've been stuck in for the last 25 years. It's the same thing over and over: get up, go to work, come home, cook dinner, kiss goodnight, sleep, repeat. I needed something fresh and exciting. Feeling fed up with our dull routine, I brought up the idea of doing more weekend trips. Quick getaways to nearby spots could be fun, I thought. I even suggested we catch some ballet shows, which she's crazy about, or go to our local baseball games, which I enjoy. I threw in ideas like buying a boat, maybe a motorcycle, taking up tennis lessons, trying dancing, joining a bowling league, visiting gardens, or trading books. These were all things we had once talked about over the years, so I figured one of them might reignite some spark since my lovely wife seemed down. But nope. Every suggestion was shot down. Finally, half joking, I said that instead of our usual kiss goodnight and having sex once a week or two, we should flip it, have sex every night and just kiss goodnight once in a while. I made sure she knew I was only half serious. Imagine my surprise when she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Honey, we're 48, and let's be real, we haven't been doing it even once a week or every 2 weeks. I know you'd like more, but honestly, it's gotten so boring." I was floored. Then she hit me with this: "You're the only man I've ever loved and will always love, so I don't want you to be upset. Just hear me out." Oh boy, here we go. Lindsay never beat around the bush, she was always direct. I knew something big was coming. "You're also the only guy I've ever slept with, and that makes me curious. I can't help but wonder what else is out there. You've always made me happy in bed, but Carla says." There it was, Carla. I should have known. She's the wild card. Full of energy, up for anything, especially if it involves some kind of adventure. She's a few months shy of her 3rd wedding and already scouting for husband number 4. Each divorce left her well off, and she's sitting pretty on 5 acres near the club with a bank account to match. She's got 3 kids, 1 from each marriage, and they're all covered by generous child support from their rich dads. Carla's done the rounds at every nude beach in the country and several abroad. She's hit up all the top clubs, taken all the wild trips, you name it. The type of woman who could show up at a church potluck in sky-high heels, and no one would bat an eye. She's a whirlwind, full of life, and she just so happens to be my wife's best friend. I think it would be a shame not to see what it's like dating other men before we get too old. So, I'm suggesting you start spending Fridays with Carla and explore her world. It's perfect timing since the kids are out of the house, and no one's going to get hurt. No one's going to get hurt? The idea made my stomach turn, and I could feel dinner starting to come back up. Yes, no one will get hurt. What about me? I asked, feeling my voice shake a little. Oh honey, Carla warned me you might get jealous. But remember, you're the only man I love, and that's never going to change. You had your fun with other women before we met, so you already know what that's like. I've only ever been with you. I deserve a chance to experience something new. Kim, what if you end up liking one of those guys so much that you don't want to come back? What if you fall for someone else? What about me? I'd lose everything if you did that, and so would you. We've got such a great life, and we're both close to retirement in just a few years. We could travel the world, have adventures, and do it all together. We're right on the brink of those golden years, where we could reignite the passion we had before the kids came and we had to become full-time parents. What's in this for me? You know, even in a no-fault state, divorce can ruin a guy if he even thinks about it. No, you don't get it. I never want a divorce, and I definitely don't want to leave you. I want those golden years to be just as special. Sure, Carla says I could be well off with a few divorces under my belt, but honestly, I can't imagine getting old without you by my side. I saw this coming from a mile away because she always had her arguments planned out. That's why I had Greg draw up a contract for us, outlining exactly what would happen if we ever did get divorced. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't want any part of this, but I figured it would help put her mind at ease. I went over the contract. Greg was my business partner. We ran a small but efficient law firm that offered solid general advice without really specializing in anything. He took care of me in that contract, though. The division of property was laid out clearly. My wife would keep the house and all its contents, while I would get our winter condo, the beach house, and my fishing cabin. Financially, it was all pretty fair, so no complaints there. Kim had a good-paying job and always preferred to keep her money separate. We each had our own bank accounts, investments, and pensions. I'd paid off the mortgage a couple of years ago, so there was no need for spousal support. And the kids' college funds were more than enough to cover their education, even if they decided to go to grad school. Honestly, it was all very tidy. I owed Greg a thank you over lunch. Of course, I had questions. Why hadn't she given me a heads up? Sure, there's client confidentiality, but we were partners, right? Wasn't there a conflict of interest? I thought so, but Greg was also my attorney in this case, so I let it slide. Maybe I'd extend that lunch to dinner. Greg and I made a great team at work, but whenever we had downtime, we acted like a couple of high school kids, constantly flirting. Wait, hold on, what about me? That's the question I should have been asking myself. Greg flirts with me, clients flirt with me, neighbors flirt with me, and even the women at the club can't help but flirt with me. Heck, even Carla had blatantly propositioned me right in front of Kim. Fine, if my wife wants to play around with someone new, let her have her fun. If she wants to see how I measure up to other guys, that's fine too. I don't think she realized what she was doing by throwing me into such a tempting situation. I'm not sure she knew that Greg's contract left the door wide open for me as well. I signed my name right below hers on every copy and grinned like a cat that just got into the cream. Without a word, I handed her a copy, then filed mine away in my secure, locked drawer. Alright, sweetheart, you're officially a free woman now. Go ahead and have your fun. I only have 2 requests: don't bring it into our bedroom, let's keep that space just for us, and give me a 48-hour gap between your last night with someone else and our next time together. That's fair, Tommy, I can agree to that. But remember, this isn't just about sex. We're going to be making love. No, Kim. Making love is something that only happens between 2 people who truly love each other. If you're out there with someone else, it's not making love, it's just sex. So, as long as we're in this open arrangement, it's just going to be sex, nothing more. No, honey, you're missing the point. Part of the whole cuckolding dynamic is the romance. The idea is that when a woman comes back home, she makes love to her loyal, submissive husband, and slippery seconds are a part of that. You need to accept my relationships with other men to show that you love me enough to let me explore, knowing I'll still come back to you. Cuckolding culture? No, that's not how it's going to work. Read the contract carefully, Kim. Nowhere in there does it say our marriage is some kind of cuckold relationship. A cuckold is a man whose wife sleeps with other men while he stays loyal to her. Sorry, but I'm not signing up for that. In fact, the very idea made me almost lose my lunch when you brought it up. I have zero interest in sharing you or watching from the sidelines. What you're talking about is an open marriage where both of us are free to do whatever we want, no strings attached. So yeah, we'd both be playing the field with no restrictions. She grabbed her copy of the contract and started reading through it carefully. I could see her shoulders sag as it hit her. She realized she had set something in motion, something that wasn't quite what she had expected. But I could tell the curiosity had already taken root. She knew that even if she didn't follow through with this, the temptation was too strong, and sooner or later, she'd end up cheating. But now, there were new stakes. She realized that I had something to lose too. She was gambling with the possibility that I might find someone else. She was risking everything as well. The doorbell rang. Kim slipped out of my office to answer it, and I followed. Carla came bursting through the door. So, did he agree? She asked. Kim shot me a look before turning to Carla. So, Carla, you're taking my wife out every Friday night? I asked. Carla looked caught off guard. She probably expected me to be upset or worried about what Kim had proposed. Instead, she just nodded, a bit unsure. Well, here's the deal, if you get Fridays, I get Sundays. Both women looked completely shocked. I stepped up to Carla, cupped her face in my hands, and kissed her deeply, passionately. Without even glancing at Kim, I picked Carla up and carried her straight into my office. There, I bent her over the soft arm of my leather couch and took her the way I'd always imagined. We spent the next 2 hours together, completely wrapped up in each other. Kim was right, a bit of new excitement had reignited something inside me that I hadn't felt since I was a teenager. Less than an hour later, I heard Kim's car start up and drive off. I didn't care when or if she'd be coming back. By the time Carla had showered and dressed, I was already outside grilling steaks on the barbecue. Kim barely spoke during dinner, but Carla and I enjoyed endless conversation, sweet smiles, and playful touches. When it was time for her to go, I kissed Carla with the same tenderness I'd always reserved for Kim, the kind of kiss that would make her melt. See you next Sunday, sweetheart, I said with a grin. Maybe, but who knows? You might have plans on Friday, she teased with a smile before heading out the door. I smiled to myself and settled in to watch the Sunday game. Meanwhile, Kim stood at the sink, quietly crying while she washed the dishes. Later, when she turned to me in bed, I held her close. I could tell she wanted more, but I reminded her of our 48-hour rule to avoid those slippery seconds. She rolled over, still crying, and eventually fell asleep. I, on the other hand, slept like a baby, just as I always did. Kim left early the next morning, off to work. Being a real estate agent, she always knew the early bird gets the worm. She still left me my usual coffee and breakfast, and the newspaper was laid out on the table, just like every other day. Everything felt the same, except for the smile that was still lingering on my face. I had to give her some credit. This whole idea of stepping outside our marriage really got me thinking. I do love my wife. Sure, Carla was amazing in her own right, she knew how to take care of me in ways that were pretty incredible, but nothing compared to making love with Kim, the woman I'd built a life with. Still, I wasn't a fan of this arrangement. I wanted a woman who only wanted one man, me. When I walked into the office, Greg greeted me with his usual wide grin. I told him the whole story and then invited him to dinner. He laughed like a kid when I mentioned Carla and couldn't stop chuckling when I explained my rule about no slippery seconds, and keeping our bed sacred. He already knew what he'd slipped into the contract, and it was clear he was pleased with himself. He accepted the dinner invite, but insisted we head back to his place that same evening. We ended up at Greg's house for dinner. The meal was delicious, the dessert was out of this world, the wine was top-notch, and Greg was completely on fire. Later, back at his place, we spent hours together, completely lost in each other. As we lay there, catching our breath, Greg admitted something. "I've dreamed of this for years, Teddy. But your marriage was so important to you, I never would have crossed that line. I know you love Kim, but when she brought up this crazy idea, I couldn't resist. I had to take my one chance to be with you. Tomorrow, we'll go back to being friends and partners, but tonight, I loved being your man." "Maybe," I said. "But if Kim drags this out too long, she might not have anyone left to come back to, Greg. If that happens, I want to be first in line. I always told her she was out of her mind for doing this. You're too good a catch to let slip away. If she loses you, you're mine." We kissed, and I headed home. Kim was already asleep, so I took a quick shower and crashed in the guest room. But the next morning, she was waiting for me at breakfast. "Teddy, so Carla says you're the best sex she's ever had." I shrugged and told her that the night had actually gotten a bit boring, and there were moments I just wanted to wrap things up quickly. I didn't feel like the effort matched the results. Kim didn't hold back, calling me an idiot. She went on to say that if she loses me, Carla's ready to take me, even if it means giving up her fortune in a divorce. Then she softened and said, "Teddy, can we stop this? It was such a dumb idea. I can't stand the thought of you making love to Carla." Suddenly, I saw the whole situation in a different light. At first, I had been ready to go along with her proposal, but now, I needed to make sure these wild notions were really out of her head. Besides, things were picking up for me. After years of having sex maybe once a week or two, I'd done it twice in as many days. Carla was a cute little brunette, with an easygoing attitude and a way of moving that seemed like she could read her partner's mind. Greg, on the other hand, was tall, curvy, and blonde. I couldn't help but feel a little liberated. I wanted to explore this new world. It was exciting, it was fun, and it felt great. You've got this desire you can't seem to shake. You felt like you had to act on it. I know it'll come back again, and when it does, you'll end up cheating on me. I'd rather it be honest. So go ahead, get it out of your system. Let's see how I handle it. If, after this month, you realize you still want me and just me, we'll come back together. But first, you've got to finish this. I don't want to hear about it later. And if you decide to give up on this plan and I catch you cheating on me after all, I'll divorce you and use that contract against you." She reluctantly agreed to my terms. That night, she turned toward me in bed again, but it hadn't even been 48 hours since I'd been with Carla in the office, and the news about Greg had left her a bit shell-shocked. She cried softly again, unable to fall asleep until I finally gave in and wrapped my arms around her. Maybe Thursday night would be the next opportunity for me. Wednesdays were my half-days, and normally I'd spend the afternoon golfing. But that day, the weather was awful, non-stop rain. On my way home, I spotted Carla's SUV pulled over on the shoulder of the road, so I stopped to see what was going on. She had a flat tire and was struggling with the jack. Without hesitation, I jumped out, changed the tire for her, and got soaked in the process. Afterward, Carla insisted I come in for some hot coffee and lunch to warm up, so I accepted. The coffee was terrible, but let me tell you, her body was something else. She shrugged off her jacket as the coffee finished brewing, and my jaw just about hit the floor. Her white blouse was soaked through from the rain and clung to her curves. I could see the lace pattern of her bra and the outline of her chest. "Calm down, man, you're married," I reminded myself, laughing under my breath. My nerves started to settle, and we talked about the whole mess Kim and I had gotten into. Carla found it all pretty funny. We both laughed, but I couldn't help noticing that her flat stomach didn't jiggle, just like mine didn't. We had both managed to stay in decent shape, and I think that added to the moment. There's something incredible about a woman's skin when it's wet. It feels soft, like a warm embrace. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, we were stripping off our wet clothes and running for her shower. After we got cleaned up under the hot water, we found our way to her bed and reconnected, both physically and emotionally. It had been a long time since Carla had a night like that, not since her divorce, and I could tell she needed it. Teddy, I really hope things between you and Kim get better. I like both of you, you've been such great neighbors. But if things don't work out, I mean, I could really fall for a guy like you. It was more than just a compliment, it was a plea, and maybe even an offer. She told me to come over whenever I had the chance, as long as I was honest with Kim. I didn't turn her down. When I got home, I was late for dinner, but Kim didn't seem to mind. She hadn't cooked anything anyway. We sat down to talk, and she told me about her day. She had finally scored a win with one of her clients. She showed him a house, and after some back-and-forth negotiating, he made an offer that the owner accepted. They had sealed most of the deal over the phone from the business center at his hotel, and to celebrate, they went for drinks and food. He even invited her to keep the party going with champagne in his room. Once they got there, things escalated quickly. He started undressing her, pushed her onto the bed, but it was obvious the guy had no idea what he was doing. She tried to make it work, to find some pleasure in the moment, but she just couldn't get into it. Teddy, I barely felt anything. It was such a disaster. I was furious with myself by the time I got home. He was so proud of how long he lasted, and then he started trash-talking you. He actually said, "Has your man ever kept you going like this? Does he give it to you like I do?" He just wouldn't shut up, even after we finished. Finally, I snapped and told him to stop talking about you. I told him he had no idea what he was up against. I said you knew exactly what I was doing today, and he didn't win anything. You should have seen the look on his face. She sighed, clearly frustrated. I had to soften the blow, though. So, I told him he was sweet and that I had fun, then wished him well with his move. I even joked about inviting his wife over for dinner. Maybe we could switch places. You should have seen the guy stammering. We had a good laugh about it, and for the first time in a while, we shared a real moment together. Kim knew I had been with Carla. She saw my car parked at her house when she drove by, and since Carla lived right across the street, she also saw me walking back home. "I want you back now," she said, "but I have to wait until Friday to test you. It's really unfair. A man comes home to his wife every day for years, takes care of her, mows the lawn, works in the garden, holds her hand when her mother dies, and she holds him when his father passes. They bring each other chicken soup when they're sick, share the responsibility of raising the kids. He's there every day. And then, out of nowhere, the wife says, 'This is boring. You keep up the daily grind, and I'll go have fun with someone else because you're too worn out from life to keep me entertained.' Teddy, it's not fair. I still want you back. You haven't lost me yet, but an idiot like that guy isn't a fair comparison." I couldn't help but smile. "Scratch, Kim, you're rich, but you don't own me. Carla might have her 48 hours on Friday, but I'll make sure someone's happy Friday night. And, I've got a date with Jessica on Sunday, so it looks like Tuesday will be your day." She smiled at that. By Thursday, I realized I'd been with 3 different women over the past 4 days. 3 women had basically told me they were waiting in the wings if my marriage didn't work out. Meanwhile, my wife was trying to get back on track but wasn't quite the partner I needed her to be. I probably should have been tired, but instead, I felt pretty good. That evening, as I was getting ready to close up the office, a woman walked in. Greg had an appointment to pick up his car from the shop, so I agreed to take care of the potential client. Our office manager, Sarah, had left a few hours earlier, so it was just me and this striking woman standing there in front of me. She was tall, with smooth olive skin, and to my surprise, she took off her coat, revealing a tight sweater dress that hugged her curves. The high slit showed off the tops of her lace stockings, and she wore heels that made the whole look impossible to ignore. My eyes eventually made their way up to meet hers, deep, dark, and captivating. "I'm here for some advice on a domestic matter," she said in the smoothest, most sultry contralto voice I'd ever heard. I couldn't help myself. "My advice? Divorce him and run away with me," I said with a straight face. She held my gaze for a moment, and then her eyes sparkled. She started laughing, and soon enough, we were both laughing together. I told her I was just about to leave for the night, but if she hadn't eaten yet, we could discuss things over dinner. She didn't say no. Over dinner, she opened up about her situation. She suspected her husband was cheating on her, but she didn't have any proof. She was frustrated, feeling trapped, and wanted to protect herself in case he decided to leave her high and dry. I offered her some advice, basic but important. I told her to close any joint credit lines, withdraw half of their shared savings and put it in a separate account under her name, and stash away any valuable family heirlooms like jewelry where he couldn't find them. I also explained how to use tech to her advantage, like slipping a GPS tracker in his car, enabling Find My Phone on his devices, and keeping an eye on his phone usage. I even gave her the number for a detective agency in case she wanted to have him followed or check up on his movements. Lastly, I suggested she stay with a trusted friend or family member if things turned south and keep a journal of anything suspicious. Then, out of nowhere, she asked, "What do you think about a revenge night?" She reached out and took my hand while unbuttoning another button on her blouse, giving me a better view of her ample cleavage. I held her hand gently with both of mine. It's a very tempting offer, especially with everything going on in my marriage right now. But here's the thing, even though you haven't officially hired me yet, you're my client, and it would be a conflict of interest for me to have revenge sex with you. You're fired. I couldn't help but laugh. Well, in that case, I guess I have nothing to lose. But before we go any further, I want you to be sure this is really what you want. A revenge night might feel good in the moment, but by tomorrow morning, you could be feeling guilty, wondering if you're just as bad as your husband. And if you're wrong about him cheating, there's no going back. You'll be responsible for the end of your marriage, maybe even for a divorce he files for. Is that really what you want? She let out a long, heavy sigh, and I could see the conflict on her face as she thought it over. "Can I rehire you?" she asked softly. "It would be my honor. But if I help you divorce him and things don't get better, I'll make you a deal. Once it's all over, we'll go out every night for a month. Consider that my guarantee." I left the pub feeling pretty good about myself, proud of the way I handled the situation with some dignity and class. On the way home, I decided to stop at the store and grab another bottle of wine. If I was going to spend the night at home, I figured a few glasses wouldn't hurt. While I was paying, I heard a voice behind me. "So, Lisa told me you and Kim have some kind of arrangement, and she said she's never seen anyone handle it like you." I turned around and saw Tina standing there, smiling. Tina was one of Lisa and Kim's friends, and she was even wilder than Lisa. She was the kind of woman who expected to be pampered before anything else happened: dinners, expensive gifts, trips to Tiffany's. You could date Tina for a year, but nothing intimate would happen until you'd bought her jewelry or designer clothes. The dress she had on looked like it cost at least $1,000, even though it was barely covering anything at the neckline or the hem. Her shoes were equally pricey, and her heels showed off her perfect calves. She was dripping in diamonds and pearls, with a hat that probably cost more than my car. I'm guessing she also told you about my wife's brilliant idea to open up our marriage after all these years, I said. Yes, Teddy, she did. So now that you're free to play, how about you play with me, darling? What concerns me is your reputation. My reputation? Darling, I'm no crazier than Lisa, and you started with her. What's so different about me? Well, Tina, you laid it all out for me last summer. You string guys along until they're hooked on the idea of sleeping with you, then you take them on a shopping spree at Tiffany's or Neiman Marcus before they get anywhere with you. I just don't feel like leaving you a tip like your usual dates do. So if you want to know if Lisa's story is true, come with me to the Hilton right now. And when we get there, you can give me those pearls and your diamond earrings as a tip, and then I'll spend the night with you. She hesitated, her hand instinctively reaching for her necklace. It was beautiful, and the diamonds matched perfectly. If you're as good as Lisa says, you can keep the shoes, she finally said with a sly smile. The Hilton was cozy, and breakfast the next morning was fantastic. I showed up late to the office, but luckily, I had no morning meetings. There were a dozen messages from Kim on my phone. I texted her back, letting her know everything was fine and that I'd see her over the weekend. Greg loved hearing the story and made a note that I looked like a cat who had just gotten into the cream. By Friday night, I came home late. Kim had already gone out with Jessica and Tina for a girls' night. She left me a note though. In it, she mentioned how upset she was that I hadn't come home the night before and that I wasn't around to say goodbye. She felt like I wasn't supporting her needs in this whole arrangement and said we needed to have a serious talk when she got back. Since I didn't bother calling her the night before, she wouldn't call me that night. She hoped I enjoyed not knowing where my wife was, and she pointed out that it was only fair I learn that lesson. Well, she taught me a lesson, that's for sure. Now I had nights where I'd be stuck at home, pacing back and forth, wondering how her date was going. After all these years of marriage, the one person who used to bring me peace had become the source of my anxiety. Back when we made love once a week, that was more than enough for me. But now, 5 different women in 5 nights, all eager and most of them offering to take Kim's place if this little experiment ended in a breakup. With all this variety, I wasn't about to spend my Friday nights sulking over the one woman who had rejected me just last week. It was ironic. Kim, the love of my life, had become the only one turning me down. Sleeping with her felt like a distant memory. If I had my way, I'd make sure at least 48 more hours passed before that happened again. I decided to head into the city for a change of pace. My kids had gotten me into alternative rock, and there was a concert at Radio City featuring 3 awesome bands. I managed to snag a great seat, front row of the balcony, right by the aisle. Soon enough, I was surrounded by a group of attractive 20-somethings. Sure, they were adults, but at my age, they might as well have been kids. They teased me a little for being out of place, but the girl who joked about how I had missed the legendary Gumbardo concert had such a sweet smile that I couldn't help but smile back. As soon as the first band hit the stage, I got up and started singing and dancing with the crowd. Surprisingly, I knew every word to every song. Suddenly, I wasn't just the old guy in the room, I was cool. A couple of beers didn't hurt, and when they passed me a funny cigarette, well, I didn't say no. Somehow, I spent the entire night dancing in the aisles with them, and as we were leaving, the same girl who teased me grabbed my hand and declared, "You're coming with us." I laughed. "I'm too old to hang out with you kids." "I know, but we're betting you've got another round left in you." She wasn't wrong. The night continued, and eventually, it was down to just 3 of us, me and 2 of the girls. Their apartment was just a block away, and though I don't remember exactly how we got there, I do remember clothes flying off and those 2 bodies being nothing short of incredible. When my boxers went sailing, the girls exchanged a glance before pouncing on me like they hadn't seen a man in months. It was wild. I'd forgotten just how soft and elastic young skin could be, but those memories came rushing back in a hurry. By the time I left, I found Tina's gifts in my pockets, the pearls and diamond earrings she had handed over. I decided to leave them for Jenny, just a little something for her to find at home, maybe shed a tear over. But the earrings looked even better on the girl who teased me all night, and the pearls fit her friend perfectly. They were surprised and thrilled, like I was some kind of modern-day Robin Hood, seducing the rich and giving to the young. Jewelry really is a girl's best friend, after all. We spent Saturday strolling through museums in Central Park, then hit a blues bar in Brooklyn that night. That was followed by another night of, well, more of the same. I finally kissed them both goodbye late Sunday morning and figured it was time to head home to see Kim. But no, Sunday was Jessica's day. And honestly, I wasn't sure how I felt about Kim at that point. She was more than just a roommate to me, but something had shifted. Of course, I still loved her. We had spent a lifetime together, raised kids, shared laughter, and supported each other through all the ups and downs. But when it came to intimacy, my interest in her had evaporated. My tab had no interest in slot B, as they say. And as for slot C or D, not much appeal there either. It was strange. Could it be that Kim's desire to open up our marriage had landed her squarely in the friend zone? When I got home, Kim was sitting in the living room, clearly not in the best of moods. It didn't take a genius to figure out things were far from perfect in her version of paradise. She looked furious, and it seemed like her anger had been simmering since Friday night and had now reached a boiling point. "You need to explain yourself," she snapped. "How were your weekends?" "I stayed out Friday night, if you must know," she continued, her tone laced with sarcasm. "And guess what? I finally found a man who knows how to treat a woman right. I wanted to tell you how I felt, but you weren't even home." "Who were you with?" "Let me guess, someone too young for you." "Unbelievable." Well, that was pretty blunt and direct. She didn't hold back. Kim kept talking, her frustration bubbling over into a rant about how things were supposed to play out. I wasn't really paying much attention. She rambled on about how our little experiment should have made us closer, how we were supposed to come back together, sharing our experiences, and how I should have been home, thinking about the excitement of reuniting to make our time together that much more intense. It was all a lot of should, and honestly, that's when most men just tune out. In fact, the unofficial Male Survival Guide practically recommends thinking about something completely unrelated when the word should comes up. The trick is to nod and throw in a yes, dear every now and then. The goal? Maintain peace while mentally escaping to a far-off place, perhaps fantasizing about someone with long legs, flowing hair, and a revealing outfit. But my daydream was abruptly interrupted when I heard the phrase, "You should have." Now, that's the one phrase that can derail any conversation. There are a few ways a man can handle it. One option is to simply ignore it and drift back into the comforting fantasy world where maybe a young Audrey Hepburn is waiting to seduce you. Not a bad option, really. Another approach is to push back, something like, "Since when should I," which challenges her authority, or, "When did we decide that," which reasserts your role in the decision-making process. There's also the more daring approach outlined in the Idiot's Guide to Navigating Your Wife's Expectations. This strategy involves gradually escalating responses, starting with, "I never said that," which can be risky if she's got evidence. Then there's, "I never intended to," which might end the argument, though it could also mean no intimacy for a month. Or, you could go for the time-tested classic, "If you don't stop, I'll donate all your shoes to charity." It's a bold move, but it gets the point across. That day, though, I kept it simple. I gave her a two-word response, "You should." Needless to say, she didn't appreciate that reply any more than I appreciated her decision to open up our marriage. I couldn't help but wonder how she thought nagging me would somehow improve things. The irony was that she had set this whole situation in motion, and now, here she was, struggling to regain control. It was like she suddenly realized she had lost the upper hand. She had hoped that by rationing access to intimacy, she'd keep me under her thumb. But instead, she found herself in a position where I had women lining up, offering what she had withheld. While she was busy trying to create anticipation for our reunion, I was finding comfort elsewhere. And, to make matters worse for her, she discovered that the man she had grown bored of was still very much desired by others. Her plan to make sex a valuable commodity in our marriage backfired spectacularly. Instead of me begging for her attention, I now had women practically throwing themselves at me. And as for those tender moments she used to count on, well, those had been handed off to her best friend, the neighbor, and even some women half her age. The tables had turned, and now she was left wondering how it had all gone so wrong. To make things even worse for her, all of Kim's new lovers couldn't help but express their jealousy. They kept reminding her just how lucky she was to have had me all to herself for so many years. They admired the way I touched them, my looks, my strong arms, and how I carried myself with dignity. They went on about my patience in bed, how I seemed to know exactly what they needed, and my stamina, especially for a man my age. They couldn't get over the fact that I had spent consecutive nights with younger women, half my age, yet here I was, still full of energy and ready for a Sunday rendezvous with Kim's best friend. "Can we change our minds?" she asked cautiously. "I'm listening," I replied. "I was wrong," she admitted. "Did you really think I'd let you go that easily?" "No way." It was a big step for her to say that. She hesitated, clearly deep in thought. She was ready to propose going back to how things were before she decided we needed to talk. But I wasn't about to pretend everything was fine. If it happened once with a warning, who's to say it wouldn't happen again without one? "I think you're scared of what's ahead. You didn't see this coming, did you? If we burn this contract, I'll accept a new one that says whatever you want, if you take me back as the only woman in your life, just like it was before." I sat there, appearing to think it over. Of course, I wanted her back as my one and only. That's what I'd always wanted. And yes, I should have been more hurt by what she did. I was hurt, but it didn't sting the way it used to. Jessica, Chris, Carla, my olive-skinned client, Tina, the concert girl, and her fun-loving friend had all played their part in helping me heal. A week spent with 7 different beautiful women was a surprisingly effective remedy for a broken heart. But I wasn't going to make it easy for Kim. She had to work for it. So, I set my terms. "I'll take you back, but intimacy will be on my terms. Anywhere, any position, as long as it doesn't cause public embarrassment or put us in danger." She blinked. That kind of arrangement wasn't exactly her cup of tea, at least, not unless it was on her terms. But after a moment, she tilted her head slightly and said softly, "I agree." She was willing to take whatever I offered. Before we were done, I had her agreeing to a list of conditions. She'd wear ultra-sexy outfits on Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, the 4th of July, Labor Day, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and, of course, my birthday. I originally suggested Rosh Hashanah and Chinese New Year as well, but she pointed out that we'd never celebrated those holidays since we weren't Jewish or Chinese, so I dropped those. She also agreed to sleep naked every Friday night, no matter the weather, as long as I provided an electric blanket in the winter. On Saturday mornings, while we did housework together, she'd clean the house wearing a French-maid outfit. And on Sundays, for special occasions like the Super Bowl or the first game of the World Series, she'd serve me and my friends drinks and snacks while dressed in a little black dress, heels, and lace stockings. She'd also agree to remove one piece of clothing every hour during long car trips and tan topless in the backyard to avoid tan lines. Finally, she promised to keep her body smooth and hairless, except for her head. I wrote all of this down, but the real contract looked a bit different. About 15 minutes after she agreed to be mine again until death, I handed her the final version. The contract read as follows. We, the undersigned, agree to the following terms. First, to love each other fully and remain exclusive until death. Second, the events of the past week are forgiven but will never be forgotten, serving as a reminder of what we both stand to lose. Third, in the future, if either partner attempts to step outside the boundaries of our relationship as defined by our original marriage vows and mutual agreements, and the other partner finds no acceptable resolution, the offending partner will immediately abandon their proposal or actions or, failing that, forfeit all claims to wealth, property, and financial benefits. She signed it without hesitation, knowing full well what the consequences would be if she broke our agreement again. I could see a new determination in her eyes, but I also knew I'd forever hold the upper hand. My signature was already on the document. Kim took her time reading through it, probably expecting to find legal traps that Greg had cleverly woven into our agreement. But there were none. The document was straightforward. It simply laid out what we'd always had, with the exception of the third point, which demanded that we communicate openly about any deviations from the norm, especially when it came to involving others in our personal lives. It also reaffirmed the importance of honoring our original vows. So, you don't expect me to wear thongs and lace stockings every day? She asked with a raised eyebrow. Well, actually, yes, I do, I replied with a grin. Then, do you take me back? She asked, her voice softening. Yes, but only you. No one else compares to what we have in our intimate life. I'll fix everything, Teddy. I'll go back to being the loving wife I always was. No, darling. There's nothing to fix. I feel better now. As for the second point, you're forgiven. And once we've signed, I'll answer anything you want to know about the women I've been with this week. Just remember, don't ask what you don't want to hear. It'll be just as easy to forget it as it is to accept the second point. For the record, I don't ever want to know about your little adventures. I don't even care who they are. You really don't care? Oh, I care, all right. I'd probably do something drastic if I knew, end up in jail, the hospital, or worse. So, no, I don't want to know. And if they know me, you better warn them to keep their distance. No smiles, no gossip, no flirting. Nothing. Are you serious right now? You're jealous? I've been waiting all week for you to react like this. Okay, Teddy, I admit I was foolish to start this. But you didn't even fight for me. Now you're saying you're jealous? Kim, everything has changed now. I want to keep you. Whatever was going on in your head, it's over. You're mine. Last week, I thought you wanted to belong to someone else, and I wasn't about to fight for a woman who didn't want me. When I was with Jessica, I was ready to replace you. I didn't want Jessica, but I was curious. I wanted to explore other women before I settled down with a new wife. I tried 7. 2 of them could have been contenders, but no one comes close to you. Now that you want to be with me, now and forever, I'll fight for you with everything I've got. Without hesitation, she signed. So, Teddy, do you think you can show me what I've been missing? First, you've got to toss your old contract into the fireplace. Mine's already in there. Burn it. She went upstairs and came back with her copy. God bless Greg for that clever document, he might have just saved our marriage. Kim placed her copy in the fire, and soon the flames turned that chapter of our lives to ash. Now, Teddy, we can go upstairs and make love, she said with a smile. I laughed, this time a genuine laugh, not the sarcastic one I'd used all week. The irony wasn't lost on me. No, darling, we're still on the 48-hour cooling-off period, I said, not even finishing my sentence before she tore off my clothes and threw me to the floor. Nature took its course. Now, every time she says, honey, I've been thinking, I quickly reply, if it's not about going to bed with me, keep it to yourself. It might not be the response approved by the Male Survival Guide, but it works for me. Second story. I'm an 18-year-old guy, and my partner, who's also 18, and I have been together for more than 5 years. Yeah, we started dating when we were 13. Please don't judge, we were kids, and honestly, I didn't even like her at first. But I asked her out, and she said yes. 5 years later, we're still together. This is my first time posting, so I'm sorry if I come off as a bit scattered. A couple of years ago, when we were 16, we had just finished 10th grade, and I started working at a store. One day, my sister, not my biological sister but my aunt's daughter, told me she saw my girlfriend at the movie theater with another guy. I was at work when she told me, and as soon as I could, I confronted my girlfriend about it. She admitted it and broke up with me that same day. I know I shouldn't have, but I begged her to take me back because I loved her so much. After about 2 weeks of begging, she finally forgave me for her mistake, and we got back together. Apparently, she had told the other guy that we had broken up, which is why they went to the movies twice. After we patched things up, she was distant, but at the time, I didn't think much of it. I was just happy to have her back. I've known the guy since I was 5 years old, and I never imagined he'd make a move on my girlfriend. He once messaged me, saying he and his girlfriend had broken up, and then he texted my girlfriend to set up their little movie date while I was busy at work. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, I'm just shaking and having a hard time explaining this. Right now, she doesn't come online much, and when I ask her why, she just says, no reason. Yesterday, she told me that little things were irritating her, and that's why she hasn't been talking to me. I asked her to tell me what those little things were so I could help, but she just ignored me. So, can anyone tell me if it's okay for someone in a relationship to go to the movies with another guy alone? I'm 18, but I'm a pretty simple guy, and I have certain rules. I just don't think it's okay. Please let me know if I'm overreacting or if this is just how things work with relationships now.